FTI community, I am joined by someone who is responsible for a lot of the new additions to mine and Daniel's closet, including the hat on my head. She handcrafts many cozy and stylish hats, scarves, earrings, dresses, totes, and more. Emphasis on more because the future has a lot in store. She is a University of Guelph alumni. She, alongside Joe, are the parents of the recent birthday boy, Fry. She is someone who is a big supporter of independent artists and collectives. And most importantly, she is someone who's really made the most out of the last year since launching Garden Variety. FTI community, please help me welcome Sally of Garden Variety to the In Your Studio podcast. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here with you.
Heck yes, this happened so fast, and it's really fun just how quick you were to be a part of it. Sometimes I get really I get not scared, but anxious about pitching this idea. I'm like, hey, I would really like to dedicate a week to you, and then snap of a fingers, you're like, down. Let's do it. This is the most unique In Your Studio podcast to date, because we've spoken to Dylan Lorman of Couch Apparel, who does more so graphics to logos with a whole world of art as well, because he's also an illustrator. But you handcraft everything that you create, and it's really told from behind you. And launching Garden Variety just shy of a year ago, you've created a garden that not only continues to expand with new eye-catching fashion statements, but you're already looking forward to the future with other realms that I will not spoil. From hats to scarves, dressings to earrings, the first year has been absolutely incredible, and the future is only looking so much more courageous and exciting. But for those who may not know the gardener behind Garden Variety, introduce us to Sally.
Hey, everybody. I'm Sally Draper. I'm really excited to be here with FTI. I always love when we get to interact in the wild, and now more officially, I'm behind Garden Variety. You've seen me and probably talked to me if you've ever seen Garden Variety at a show or anything like that, or you might have just seen me in and about Guelph, where I love to live. Garden Variety is something I've been working on over the past year, and it was really born out of my love for outdoors, gardening, and kind of my all-encompassing interests and how I could bring them all together and engage with my community.
Would you say that Garden Variety is something that you knew, I don't know how to really say it. I was trying to figure it a way during when I was preparing for this. Would you say that when you create something out of Garden Variety, you leave a piece of yourself in the work you create?
I absolutely would say that. It's tricky to think about when I'm letting go of a piece that I've put so much time and thought into, whether it's thousands of stitches or, the design from drawing out the garment on paper to sewing it all up. It's something that I've poured all my time into, and it's really strange to think that I'll never see most of these things again.
What was it like releasing your first piece to the wild and having somebody that's not let's take out Joe or a friends or family, the first stranger to a table per se? What was that experience where you're oh my goodness, a part of me is leaving with the stranger that I didn't know existed 5 minutes ago?
It's a really special interaction, and I definitely am not shy about saying this is the first time I've sold a piece like this, and it's just really special that someone entrusts you with the money that they've earned to buy something that's going to keep them warm, or that they're excited to gift to somebody, or a bag that they can, reuse time and again. It's just really special to be a part of people's everyday lives like that.
Of course. On the side where you're the vendor and you're selling, did any of the Garden Variety inspirations come from you attending a pop-up market where you're I like what you're doing and I can really see myself on the flip side of the table as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've attended many pop-up markets like this in the past. I'm somebody who's always loved crafts, and there's a great craft community there. I'm a big fan of the Guelph pottery markets. I always love to go check out those when they're by the river in the park there. But I actually have a lot of experience working at these kind of events. My aunt and uncle own a motorcycle magazine, and I have sold subscriptions for them many a time at different motorcycle events in and around Ontario. So I'm pretty comfortable with standing behind the table and engaging with people.
What would you say the crowd is from a pop-up market to, I guess, where you were selling the subscriptions? Did you ever see the same kind of audience, if that makes sense, or are they two separate worlds?
I think both motorcycles and crafts have an older audience, so definitely some of the same people in that sense. Bikers are all nice people in my experience, so Just friendly faces, I would say.
Of course, yes. Let's head to the very, very beginning where Garden Variety was mere maybe weeks or days away. You credit the motivation behind Garden Variety getting started from Joe, your family, and your friends. You have such an incredible support system behind you. The comments are always full of love. People are always resharing, reposting, even sharing what they've gotten from you, like the hat on my head. So many things to the right of me in mine and Danielle's closet. When you're creating something, those initial first steps can be really daunting. But when you have such an amazing support system behind you saying, like, hey, I believe in you, you're very happy about what you're doing, you should launch that for the public to see. Talk to us in detail about what you remember about the beginnings of Garden Variety, where you took that first official step into like, I want to launch this as a brand.
Yeah, absolutely. Candidly, Garden Variety was born out of a really tough time in my life. I had a bad living situation. I had just been laid off, and I just really was really feeling a large sense of loss personally. And I just, I dove back down into the things that I knew I liked and that I knew made me feel good. I got back into my hobbies like knitting. I started playing guitar again. And as I started engaging with these things that maybe felt a little more authentically me, I was finding that my friends and family were noticing that and engaging with that too. And it was just amazing seeing, I pour my time into something and people are willing to engage with that right back with me and really support me. And it was just when I started doing things that I loved again, people started noticing that and started really giving the love back.
Do you have like a story of like where something you were creating, maybe like mid creation photo on your camera roll, where a friend looked at it and said, you got to put that for the world to see. Like you got to share that with the world.
That's an interesting question. There was times when I had kind of teased with the idea myself of putting it out there, but it was kind of just starting on my own personal accounts and posting some of the things that I was making. And a lot of my friends who are already in creative spaces, encouraging me, you got to start sharing this, dedicate a space and start building a community around it. And I felt that the community was there, and that's really how I felt empowered to dive right in and kind of create my brand.
Yes, and you honestly took the words out of my mouth there. And we've talked about it many a times before. Is just how loving and how like close the creators are in Guelph, especially. Like we all want to see each other just succeed because if you succeed, I succeed. If I succeed, you succeed. Because we all come up together. Like Tyler, the Excuse Me Lads, Animal Boy, Hunter, just everybody and anybody that we share as mutuals, and people that might perform at a Brothers on a Sunday, they have the same love for everyone around them. So I can't agree more with how much the downtown Guelph circle means to everybody. Um, I think it's more so a privilege than an expectation too, because it's one thing to share your art with strangers online who just double tap to like what you do. But when you get actual like conversations in person that spark off something you created, it really puts that extra like oomph in what you create, whether it's music, fashion, visual arts, or just creating a platform like FTI, there are so many, and I mean so many people in those outlets who are responsible for the people that we are today. What is it about the support of others, especially other artists, that push you to a higher level and motivate you to create?
That's a great question. And, you've done a really great job connecting this community of artists that we have here in Guelph. And I think just, you know, a big motivator for me to create is, in a time when I just feel like I have some stagnancy in my life and I can start knitting something and really like create a relationship with that time. Whereas I could have felt that it was wasted before, I can see something tangible that I've made. And it's really unique to see other people go through times in their life. I comment always about, excuse me, like, I can't believe you guys work together and have been friends for 10 years. And it's
Yes,
just,
yes.
it's the willingness, I think, to, give yourself periods of rest and time, but come swing back to it. And when you get that momentum going with everybody, I think you can just feel the energy and everyone gets excited to start doing more.
Other than Joe, because that's a given, who is in your circle that you would say is a like a big source of inspiration and love?
Yeah, I get a lot of inspiration from Tyler Warden of Warden Watch. I know you're a big Warden Watch fan as well. Even things from when I was designing my business cards, I was holding up his business card looking at it. It's just, people willing to put themselves out there, and the vulnerability that you get from the people in your community is really inspiring to keep pushing yourself as well. I'm hoping to work with Steph, the photographer, hometown shooter, soon in the future too. I'm just really inspired by the kind of dreamlike quality of their photos and the idealism of the places I grew up with. And yeah, I'm happy to be part of the community. I love, like I said, all the boys and excuse me, the animals and Animal Boy are all supporters as well. So it's really nice to just engage with the crowds.
Tyler and Stefano, especially, I think what's really cool focusing on Stefano is how involved he is with the person behind the creation, just because it gives that like that promo photo shoot like an extra layer of authenticity. I know when he shot the relaunch concert, I had an idea in my mind of how the photos were going to turn out, but I want to tell you from Steph sending me the Google Drive to Instagram seeing it was maybe like 4 or 5 minutes. Like I was just absolutely like blown away. And then fast forward to Tyler releasing both of the watches, like his theme number one, his theme number two. And then knowing Stefano took the ideas of Tyler's brain, graffiti, bubblegum, and really created something that like caught my eye right away. Mind you, I knew it was Warden Watch because I kind of got a sneak preview. But if I was just a random stranger, Stefano and Tyler's friendship working together to bring Tyler's like creative vision to a higher realm, insane. Like what Stefano does for others, he is always looking to not only elevate others, but he's also making sure that others get exactly what they want. So I think down the line for Garden Variety, if you had like a collection per se of like a themed collection, if like Stefano shot like the models, if Stefano shot it in like a garden, it would really capture not only Garden Variety, but just how well you two work together because you guys believe in each other so much, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think we've got something in the works you'll be excited about.
Oh, bring on. I want to dive into something, and it's honestly really inspired by Johan. Is his family is like full, and I mean full of creatives. Like there is so many creative people in Johan's family. Not translating, but transitioning to you. Are there any family members of yours that dabbled in creation, where kind of with your upbringing, you're like, I want to create something because I want to express myself as well?
Absolutely. I would say everyone in my family is a pretty crafty person. My mom and my brother are both great visual artists. I can't draw at all. My dad can, build anything he puts his mind to. And I really learned the craft of knitting and sewing from the women in my family. And I often say my biggest competitor isn't, other people doing what I'm doing. It's my cousin Paige who learned all the same things from the same people, but she's younger and better at it. So
Oh
my
no
family
way!
really, she's great, yeah. But my family really pushes me to keep going, and their ingenuity often inspires me. Even from if you can't afford that, you should try making it. Like just the push to just try things when you feel frustrated or stuck is something huge that I get from my family.
Amazing. And what's really cool what you said there is like if you can't afford it, you should try making it. I find that since we're always being thrown with like brands and like fast fashion brands and just like brands in general, where they're like, you need to buy our product because this is what it does for you, you oftentimes can find it like more like the quality a lot better, but you can also really make like a creator's day if you're supporting independent artists because so many people, and this kind of sounds rude, but I hope I say it properly and politely. So many people will say like support independent creators, and they're nowhere after saying it. But when people really like live to the model, like I like supporting independent creators, and they really try to figure out that way of how they can make not only their vision come to life, but make sure like what Garden Variety wears, I get to wear as well. Do you ever find that that connection between you and someone buying the Garden Variety table can really not emphasize your mission, but really draw you to your next big project, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think that does make sense, and I would definitely agree with you. You know, you see with inflation now, everything is so much more expensive to the point where something handmade by an individual creator, it's likely that something at the mall, a counterpart of that would be a similar price point to begin with. So it's just, increasing accessibility of independent artists like what you're doing with FTI is so important because it takes a little more research to find somebody in your area making something that you're interested in as opposed to just going to getting it at H&M, but it's definitely becoming more and more possible.
Yes. And something that I really like about fashion designers such as yourself is you're really aware of like the materials, like the labor you're putting in and like an appropriate cost to put with it. Because at one point in time, I used to be like a relatively big thrifter. I used to work at Value Village, and I could not believe the resale prices on like clothes that were donated to Value Village. And now that like thrifting culture has become more of something cool to do rather than like a necessity for some, I find that on the flip side of the coin, finding a garden variety, finding a couch apparel is usually not only like again better in quality, but I also find that it means a lot more to the environment. When it comes to you creating garden variety, do you choose like blanks and like materials from brand new? Or do you also work with like things such as like jeans that were once loved and you're bringing like a new life into it?
I work a lot with sustainable or pre-owned materials and fabrics. Some people have qualms about cutting up clothes from the thrift store, but I promise there's new clothes at Value Village every single day, and a lot of them are, heading to the global south. Anyways, sustainability is something I think about a lot. I follow a researcher on TikTok at Arbocar, and she was talking about how it's kind of ironic that people are using textiles to just make new clothes, where clothes are the thing that we're throwing out in the first place. So I try to be really considerate of, how am I designing this? Who am I designing it for? And what is the use case here? I really aim to create pieces that can live with people and be used day to day and be repaired if they need to, but that they can use in a sustainable sense too. Usually, the best thing for the environment is to use the thing you already have. And so I'm happy to do mending or things like that to perpetuate those special items for people as well.
With like reusing like materials so they get repurposed and live the second life, was there ever been like a situation where you saw something at the thrift store, you saw something out and about, you're like, I want to repurpose that, but like the vision didn't come to life, or you usually can make something out of something you're repurposing?
Sometimes the vision doesn't come to life. I always like to joke it's frustrating when the trial has error. And I definitely go through trial and error. And, sometimes it's just you take something that was a big scrap and now it's a few smaller scraps that you have to use. But it's definitely a process of trial and error. You really want your finished product to be able to represent your vision. So sometimes it takes a few steps to get there.
And I really enjoy how this week lined up because you were responsible or like a collaborator in something that Danielle and I are having problems with, and that was just the misprints of the next batch of anniversary shirts. I was sitting on the couch on Monday, and Danielle and I were like putting like the package together that everybody gets with an anniversary shirt, and Danielle's like, "Babe," and I was like, "I don't like when you say it like that because it's not like a babe. This is so exciting." It's like, oh my goodness, like we need to like figure out something to do with them. And the first thing that came to our mind is Sally. Like this would be the perfect opportunity to repurpose these. Because with my brands in the past, like we've had a few misprints here or there, but I've never had someone as a good friend where I could like look at them and go like, I know they'll take this on because they also believe in like repurposing. They kind of probably do want a new challenge, work with something new. Have you ever got to collaborate in like a similar sense with someone where they had something on their end that didn't turn out where you're able to repurpose their creation or like their brand?
Not specifically. That's a great question. Something that I don't do a lot of, but you can definitely find crafters who do this is I finished a project for a friend whose grandmother had passed away and had been in the middle of crocheting a blanket. And so I could finish the blanket for them, which was really special to be able to, give them that sentimental item that their family member had been working on. And it was special to be involved in that process, not necessarily a collab, but I really like getting to, work with people, hear the stories behind their special items, and, do mending, things like that. I've done a few childhood blankets, special memorabilia. So I'm definitely open to taking on any kind of projects or collaborations like that.
That's absolutely incredible. Like it's not like as you said, it's not like a collaboration like brand to brand. It's you getting to put your touch on someone else's life through a blanket, through an item, because it really will always have that story when you look at it, when they use it. With garden variety, having dozens upon dozens of things out in the world being enjoyed by people every day. Let's go to the table behind you where each creation is made. What inspires like a new project? Do you curate a theme and then create a few pieces to match it, or does every creation have a unique starting process?
My process varies piece to piece, but I often start with color. I'm really inspired by color, and I love to pull from my childhood. I love nostalgia, like popsicle colors or, bright orange and greens from cartoons. Or I like a lot of, Matt Groening style animations with the really saturated primary colors. I like those too. So I like to pull inspiration from all around, but I would say I definitely start with color as a pillar of my process.
What has been kind of like a top of your creations? Do you have anything that you really enjoy creating, like hats, for examples, earrings, where you're like, I know how I can make like the next batch of them kind of like live up or exceed the previous creation?
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm really proud of right now the one of a kind knit pieces that I'm starting to make and design myself. I am always happy to post when I create something using another designer's pattern, but I can't sell other designers' patterns. It's kind of just, obviously an uncool thing to do. So, really honing in on, starting to design things for myself that I can produce commercially has been a really special process that I'm excited about.
Do you ever see garden variety kind of having like your own section in like a patch or like a similar thing where you can kind of sell like some consigned pieces? Or do you always want to make sure it either comes from you at home through an order or like a pop-up market?
I would love to be in a store. They say the patch. You say the patch. I love it. I can't go in there without spending $50. So, it would be nice to certainly be able to see my pieces in the wild like that.
With pop-up markets, I don't think I've emphasized enough to the community just how you've been doing this for under a year. Like everything you've created, every idea you've had, every conversation you've had has been under a year. Um, from your first sale to your first market to your 10th sale to your 10th market, you've been busy and your journey includes moment after moment. Talk in detail about some of like your first like sales or markets. Like what did you think going into them, and what left with you leaving the event or selling something?
The first market I went to, I was really nervous. It was a Christmas market in Waterloo, and we were lucky enough to be beside two great vendors. One is Designs by Nicklin, I believe, and one is Plain Jane Organics out of Rockwood. And the people that were there, and as a rule, the vendors at these kind of shows are all really nice and welcoming. People really want to see each other succeed. There's less of a spirit of competition as there is of community. And I really left with just a lot more confidence and a lot more new connections as well. Just that it is possible and to keep trying.
Do you have like a market that like you'll sign up for like right away, like whether it's like a punk rock or like a bazaar, or do you take on like all of them?
It's interesting. There's a lot of markets, and I try to cast a pretty wide net, but things that come across my desk are really things that I'm interested in. Ultimately, I always love a punk rock flea market. I love to hear the bands while I'm playing. While I'm playing, I love to hear the bands playing while I'm standing there, and so things like that that really, connect a few of my interests are nice.
We had that moment, I think it was in December, or was it the February one, where it was like me, Stefano, Tyler, and you. And like although Nick said like, would you prefer this be it? I was like, yeah, if you can make it work. And I helped the punk rock set up. And when I saw it actually like happen, I was like, oh my goodness, like this is like our little corner, but it's not a corner, it's like deadpan right in the middle. Something you said that was really awesome too is just emphasizing how much artists want to see other artists like support, not support, win with them and succeed. When I was talking to Growing Guelph, I don't know if it was on the podcast or we talked about it after, but it's just crazy how much like an outsider looking in perspective was someone that's not even in art. They just assume people create art for money. They just create it so they can like gain fame. But when you talk to an artist, usually they're selling or they're promoting a different artist before they talk about themselves because you've met such cool people that create cool things that at the end of the day, it doesn't really come down to like the money. It doesn't come down to like the success and fame. It just comes down to this person creates, I create, we want to create together. We'd love to see where it goes. When you have something in mind and you're like, hey, I really, really, really want to create this one specific thing, but I don't think I could do it. Do you ever go to like somebody in particular or maybe a few people that give you advice on how to create?
Yeah, I would say I definitely, my instinct is to start at home, going to my partner Joe and, running an idea by him. He's often got something that I hadn't considered. And if he doesn't, it's, a big two thumbs up to get going. So it's lots of support to get started.
Where did the idea for catnip pillows come from? Because I am still blown away.
Those are really cute. I like to repurpose my scraps, and I had a bunch of denim, so I made my cat a little pair of jeans that I, sewed all the details onto and filled with catnip, and he just went nuts for it. So I made another for a friend, and then I started looking at my scraps and thinking, what else could I use for this kind of fun little side project? And I made a bunch of clouds, which I thought was cute for them as they get
It
high, I
was
guess.
so it was so awesome. Uh Kind of shifting gears, and this is more so an on the fly thought. We've really talked about garden variety. We've talked about how like you've been inspired by family members and such, but kind of going to like the pop culture realm or like the fashion realm from like fashion designers. Is there any brands in specific growing up where you kind of were influenced by them, whether it was like a straight one-on-one influence or just like the back of your mind, you always like remembered being taken back by like something in particular?
Maybe not so specifically per brand. I've always been pretty specific about the way I dress. I never, as a kid, for example, wanted to wear more than one thing from the same store, or I really didn't like shirts that had logos on them. And I definitely, connect with individual pieces more so than I would connect with a brand. But some things that stick out in my mind, there's a photo of Lupita Nyong'o in a blue floral, or not floral, sorry, pleated Prada gown. It's just gorgeous that I love. And I like a lot of, smaller designers too. A Bronze Age is Canadian, a small business. Ella May is a Canadian designer as well that I really, connect with the sense of place that she tries to inject into her clothing really successfully. And so I would love to kind of continue my brand towards something like that.
Especially with such like a, like an optimistic and like being so motivated. I can't emphasize enough how this has been only under a year. So on like a 2 year anniversary, a 3 year anniversary, it's going to be absolutely incredible seeing what you've accomplished, not only in the fashion realm, but what we're going to get into next is where you want to take the brand. You don't want to keep it in just solely fashion. You want to explore other avenues that really express who Sally is. What are some of these realms that you want to travel into with garden variety?
Yeah, I'm hoping to be able to release a sewing pattern for some of the tote bags that I make that you can, buy on Etsy or something, and then you can make a garden variety bag at home. That would be really nice to be able to write up some instructions for that. I'm also looking into hosting some classes and workshops in knitting and crafting and mending just to kind of, share the craft that I love so much with other people.
Would you ever find yourself curating something for like a musician or even like a, I guess like a venue itself?
I would love to do something like that. I would love to get into styling as well. I'm always trying to talk the bands in my life into wearing something specific or some kind of specific style. I always joke that with Joe, I'm playing alt Ken, where I get to like pick a band t-shirt for him to wear that night. So I would love to get into really experiencing style from some other people's perspectives and trying to hone in on what they would like and represent themselves that way.
Hell yeah. I know from mine and Danielle's personal experience, we really find ourselves like our day to day wearing something that was created by like someone like you, a Tyler, a Couch. And not only do we wear it to support you, but it also goes so well with like who we are. I know that like from the months of like let's say September to I guess May, because I'm wearing one right now. Toques are my go-to because baseball caps do not fit my head. Like they stick up like it's a satellite antenna. Uh, but what I also really like is when we're doing like get-togethers at like Brothers Fry's birthday party, just how much like of us is being worn on other people. Like Tyler wearing the FTI shirt, people just like wearing anything when we go downtown. I really find a sense of like, wow, they genuinely wear this day to day. Do you also look for that, or is it something that like once they wear it, you're just like, I hope they wear it, or do you kind of get excited when you see it on them when you hang out with them?
It's really the highest praise when you see somebody using and interacting with something that you've made, for sure. And it's, special to get to see, a garden variety hat and a Warden watch on the same person. It's just, people really, I think, appreciate the artistry that goes into these things. And when they have the opportunity to connect and implement it in their lives, really embrace it.
Now, I'm gonna ask you something that I find to be my favorite question, and I can't emphasize enough just how excited I am to ask you this because your hands are literally creating it, and it's all circling vulnerability. It's the staple question of every single podcast. How does vulnerability go into what you create? Like, do you ever kind of take a step back during the creation and go like, wow, like this is me? Or is vulnerability not even playing into a creation?
I would say vulnerability plays a huge role both in my brand and in my creations themselves. I found myself, at difficult times in my life sitting down and really, getting into the flow state and the meditative process of knitting as I'm trying to think something through or, working out emotions as I'm kind of weaving them into what I'm making, so to say. And from a brand perspective, vulnerability, I think, really builds trust with people. So I try to, show up authentically and engage with people in a way that's true to myself and welcoming because it just really builds trust when people feel like they can get to know you and you're willing to share with them.
Of course. And I think the most important thing, and it's like a blessing and a curse, is using social media to really like push who you are further. Because it's easy to kind of say, like, I'm selling this now, I'm selling that. But when you have like the caption that also talks about your creation, not even if the person doesn't buy it, they learn so much more about you. Um, do you find that using social media for garden variety is like a really good thing, or do you use it as a platform to just post what you worked on?
That's really interesting. I think a sense of biography in art is really important. I think that, like I touched on with vulnerability, people, once you give them the in to connect, I think um, that's really a crucial step in starting to enjoy any piece of art. But biography about the person who made it, I think, is crucial to understanding a piece, why it was made, and how it might integrate into your life as well.
Yes. I find that oversharing on social media can be dangerous, but I also find that if you're trying to really express who you are as a creative person with the world, kind of oversharing is necessary so you don't just like fall into like a bucket or like a category of just like a creator. Like whatever sticks out the most about you is what people remember about you. For example, for me, I've listened to every In Your Studio podcast while creating it, and me, I think my thing is not being able to form a proper sentence or asking five questions within one question. But I think it's okay because it just shows like I'm genuinely here in the moment. I'm genuinely wanting to talk to somebody such as yourself, such as Tyler Warden. So when somebody says like what sets the In Your Studio podcast apart, you didn't come in thinking like, oh, he's probably gonna ask me like my inspirations. He's gonna ask about this, he's gonna ask about that. It's really connecting who you are as a person to the brand that you're building with the others that you're bringing in. I think your future for garden variety is going to be one that we look back even in a year from now and go like, oh my goodness, that was only a year ago. That feels like yesterday, but you've accomplished 100 more things since yesterday. Looking forward to the future. and like honestly just the summer. Do you have anything going on or like events or like things you're excited to share, such as the thing with Stefano?
Yeah, Stefano and I are going to be working on hopefully launching a summer collection. He'll be helping me with photos and branding in that sense. And I'm also looking forward to a few other markets. I'll be at Pamphleteer Fest at Red Papaya on June 13th in Guelph. All the door proceeds are going to my friend Emma's fundraiser for costs related to her transition. So that's a great cause, and I would love to see all the FTI community there. But as I get further into the summer, I'm focusing on adding a few higher value and more bespoke pieces to my collection, things that I've designed from top to bottom that I feel really can represent me and my style moving forward.
Incredible. Like absolutely incredible. June 13th, Red Papaya. Danielle and I are going to definitely try to be there. I've seen a few people share it, and now knowing that you're a part of it, I probably saw that through the Instagram story as well. I think it's one that Danielle and I need to come be at. These final three questions for you are the hardest of the whole podcast, and emphasis on the sarcasm behind hardest because it's one of those things where you're like, I forget everything that exists. Not limited to one medium. Choose as many as you absolutely would like. Put the FTI community onto some things that you're enjoying, such as music, film, art, anybody and anywhere.
Yeah, for sure. I've been listening to a lot of an artist called CMAT lately. She's an Irish country singer. She does kind of folky stuff. I've been liking that a lot. I've been authorized to say that we've been listening to a lot of new Excuse Me in my household, which is going to be coming out soon. So that'll be great. I'm a big podcast fan, though. I listen to CBC radio podcasts almost all day. So that's great. I've also really been on a Joe Walsh kick lately. So life's been good, plays over and over.
I think Joe Walsh is always on my on repeat, and I never ever go see who he is. And then 2 weeks ago, there was Joe Walsh and somebody else, and I was like, shows in Guelph, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like they're not just like a creator from Guelph, like this is like a known like artist like worldwide. And it's those moments where you think you're specifically listening to like artists in Guelph, and you're like, oh yeah, people like exist like outside
Yeah.
of Guelph.
Yeah, no, I definitely discovered the Eagles. So me and everybody else.
And that's so great. This next one for you is also a really fun one because after every session, I go check them out. Name an independent artist or collective that is not necessarily a part of the FTI community that you enjoy and you think the community should check out.
I've really been enjoying the fun-loving shows of Red Output lately. They're a young band from Guelph. Some of them are at Guelph right now as students as well, but their shows are loud, injected with a lot of fun, and I'm just really enjoying all the stuff that they're doing. I'd be remiss also not to shout out, Animal Boy, Excuse Me, Average James, all the great music we have around.
I don't know if you were a part of the conversation at your house on Fry's birthday, but we were like, yeah, there's an Excuse Me an Animal Boy show coming up, and I was just like, why isn't nobody excited? They're like, on a Sunday. Like, and I was just like, that's actually so odd. I never considered that it might be like on a day that's not a Friday night or a Saturday night.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. That's awesome.
Yeah, you can catch
Yeah,
me at that show. I'll definitely be there. Excuse Me, Animal Boy, boy band, and customer service.
incredible. Yes. Did Joe tell you about the time where actually it's in front of me, November 8th, when we were doing like the relaunch day from beginning to end? We walked in on Red Output rehearsing and we had no idea. Like, we're just like, oh, what's going on? Friends are like, yeah, we have a show next week. And they were so cool about it. But I was just like, you never know you'll walk into in the Excuse Me studio because it's not always just Excuse Me. Yeah, that was a moment.
Yeah, they're doing great stuff down there. Alex has a great spot, and he's definitely a pillar of the local music scene.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. This last one, go as into detail as you would like. It's all about you. The floor is yours. Plug yourself. Where can people find you? And how can people find you?
For sure. As I mentioned, on June 13th, I'll be at Pamphleteer Fest at, I think, 8 p.m., which is at Red Papaya in Guelph. I'll be announcing a few more summer markets as well on my Instagram at _ garden variety _. That's me. My website will be launching soon as well. But I'll be in and around. Feel free to DM me with custom or mending requests whenever.
FTI community, you heard it right from Sally. You gotta get garden variety in your closet. And more importantly, you gotta check out the booths that she has set up at every market, especially if you're Southern Ontario local. I am very happy that we had this conversation at such a perfect time too, because as the weather gets better, that means gardens sprout and yours just continues to thrive. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this time. Thank you for your time. FTI community, I am Matt. My thing is usually have a great day, have a great drive to work, or have a great time listening to this while you sleep. But today, just enjoy the weather. And I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you so much, Sally.